All right, welcome back. I will call this regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners back into session. I see we have Commissioner Eisenhower with us. Welcome. Hope it's going well over there.
It's pretty grim.
Look at the smile on her face.
It looks forced. I don't know.
What that means.
Yeah, happy to have you. And let's see, we have as we said, an executive session at 2:30. So we'll just promptly hand it over to Amit. But I do want to say we had a technical issue over the lunch break and the Zoom meeting shut down. So for anyone that's not with us, I'm sorry. We are recording this, so we will post it and you can always catch up for anything that you've missed. But we're back here for at least half an hour. All right, with that, we'll pass it over to you, Amit.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be back. Sorry to have missed you, Heidi, in person, but we'll make do. So
I'll be back. Don't worry, I'm coming back tomorrow.
okay, great. So this is the usual kind of numbers that we share every year with you all. I will come back to these numbers later. I think, what I want to point out is with these numbers is that steadily you would see the growth in terms of 23 to 25, the numbers that I have. That is something that is very obvious. One thing that I would want to point out is that for water quality shore stewards, you would see certain numbers, but that is something that we did drop the ball on because shore stewards is something that is a WSU program. People would just enroll for it. And then Monica, who was the previous coordinator, would just send out a certificate saying, okay, you are a shore steward kind of a thing. They were supposed to take courses online on their own. This is something that kind of dropped off as the handover happened to Kerry. I'm not sure if this really captures the depth of our work, this particular indicator. And we are re-looking at all the indicators and all the numbers and the targets that we are moving forward with. But I'll leave it there. The impact reports, the latest newsletter that we have, and Heidi, I'm not sure if you have had a chance to look at the impact reports in the newsletter, the latest one, but I have physical copies in the room here, and they're also on the website. They give a very good snapshot of what has happened throughout the year and what are we planning in 2025, a small glimpse of that. So for anybody interested, I would direct them to the WSU Extension website, or you can get paper copies from not only our office, but also a couple of cafes around. And so we have started doing that. But on that note, let me quickly jump through these slides that are currently on the screen. Just showing you, I can always come back to it, but I really want to focus this presentation on something which is more meta, something that we are more strategically, we have been more focused upon. And I think there is a connection there with what the county is planning in terms of Microsoft Teams or 365 or even the county implementation plan. I have been meeting Mark regularly and we have been having these conversations. And we both thought it might be a good idea to share my little learnings in terms of how I have been going on in terms of process institutionalization in the WSU Extension Office.
That's great.
So I'll focus on that instead. So as I said, I just skipped through these slides. Happy to come back if anybody wants to review these again. Okay, so the main thing that I want to talk about today is how we have been trying to develop our own organizational development model at Jefferson County Extension Office. And I'll come to this diagram that you see on the slide. But before that, I just want to lay down the premise of how and why are we approaching this the way that we are. It is definitely based on the philosophy of design research, which is we are designing as we are moving forward, because that was one of the biggest things that struck me, where the processes were not really institutionalized in the sense that with every attrition that happened, including me taking over the position of the director, there was almost zero documentation of processes, which made it very tough for me to be able to start the work right from day one or week one at least. And that is I kept meeting the same issue with the multiple attrition that happened in the year that I joined, the attrition rate, which was about 43%, 46% in that range, in that first in 2023.
That's right.
So we have been able to arrest that. That's a good news. But the bigger challenge was how to continue the program sustenance and ensure that it doesn't kind of go through these ups and downs. So we are following what is design research, which is it is building as we are going, but also iterating it. However, basing it on what is the best practices and what the research is. The idea is also this is not just for Jefferson County Extension as an office as a whole, but even for the individual program. Because for at least in our case, each program is an organization or unit in itself with more than 50 plus volunteers in some cases who are very much employees in some ways. So how do we ensure that the processes that we are developing can be taken up by those programs also? And going forward, can they be adopted by other organizations or other departments? They are very participatory and bottoms up, this idea of developing processes, because again, as I said, at least in our office, all my programs are almost like independent entities in themselves, led by program managers or directors, or whatever you want to call them. They're called coordinators, but in all real sense, they are the one deciding what the program is going to look like. So how can we develop it in a very bottoms up manner rather than a top down thing where the adoption and the ownership is there with them? This is also coming from the fact that I cannot afford attrition. So it is absolutely essential that they buy into the process. It is process and not person driven. It's not just, okay, this is something that someone liked and hence they started doing it, which seemed like a huge difference coming from a corporate background into working with non-for-profits and even with universities, if I may say so, both at Michigan State and WSU, where it is more like, okay, somebody kind of pushes through a process, and then if they leave, the entire system seems to kind of fall. So we are trying to do this while we are trying to do the regular stuff, which is a big challenge. How do you do this? Because obviously, when it comes to regular day-to-day functioning, those things tends to take the priority. Which means there are a lot of unknowns and there are a lot of iterations. There are false starts when we decide, okay, yeah, this might work, but it doesn't. And there are a lot of technical challenges. For instance, while we have gone forward with teams, one big challenge for us right now is it is so much more difficult with the restrictions coming from WSU to share files with external stakeholders. For instance, let's say regional small farms. They are part of Landworks Collaborative. Now, with all the other stakeholders, you can only share file, and that link is only valid for 7-10 days. Now, what do you do?
Yes.
So those kind of false starts that we have had, and we are trying to wrestle with that, which means the process is slow. But I'm going to be very fast, and let me move to the next slide. So this is what the framework is kind of looks like as of now. As I said, this is design research, so things might change, but this is informed by research. So my first foundational stability is what are the things that can make an organization stable? And what are the foundational elements of that? And as you can see, there are these 5 things listed down. Second layer is how can we be strategically aligned and come up with sustainable processes? Each of these words have its own import in terms of being more strategic, both in terms of alignment, coming up with sustainable things and things that are process oriented. And then there are what we are calling the program excellence pillars, and I'll detail each of these elements out in just a few minutes, which hopefully can lay the foundation of what is the vision and mission of WSU Extension, which is connecting people, resources, and knowledge, so that we can promote good quality of life and economic well-being and reach where we are heading to. I'll try and get more into the details of each one of these. So let me start with the 5 foundational pillars which provide the stability. The first one being shared values and culture. And this I would really want to acknowledge the contribution of all the leadership across the county, including the Board of County Commissioners. I have played my small role in terms of promoting that culture within the Jefferson County Extension Office. The latest evidence to support that is this Q12 engagement survey. I don't know if you have heard about this, but Gallup does this as a very established employee engagement survey. So we just launched it a couple of days back actually, and we have 6 out of the 7 responses from my Jefferson County Extension team. This is what the framework looks like, but I just want to share some of the highlights from that Gallup survey. These are few of the questions. These were the highest kind of the highlights for us, the positives for us, just 2 questions. I am yet to kind of detail this out and dovetail this out with my team, so I'm not going to get into the reasons or what is happening. I'm not in a position to do that right now, but as you would see, at least for these 2 questions, and that allude to the kind of culture that we have been able to create in the office, where people really feel engaged. Perhaps that is what has brought down the attrition significantly as compared to 2023 financially, from a dramatic 46% to 13%, with just 1 attrition that happened in 2024. However, not all is great. You can see these other 2 questions where, which is in the last 7 days, I have received recognition or praise for doing good work. You can see it's not that great. And again, I'm not getting into the details of it as to why this is happening. This is something that I'll have to kind of brainstorm with my team, but just alluding to it as to how we are relying on processes to see how engaged the teams are and how are we addressing that. Let me come to the second part, which is trust. And by trust as the foundational stability pillar, we are talking about how is the community engaging with WSU. The newsletters that you see and the social media outreach that we have strengthened is all part of that, but we have also been very mindful of our presence in community events as WSU Extension as a whole, rather than just one program. We have been very active with community partnership. I mean, I would want more, but at least it's a good start, right from the health department with Flourishing with Arts, or Chimicum Drainage District conversations, or the other conversations that we are having and trying to enter into partnerships with the health and public works with the Climate Change Summit. In terms of the leadership, again, we have started doing a lot of initiatives, including one what we are calling the program assessment, and these are the 11 plus pillars that every program coordinator is assessing themselves and then deciding which pillar or what facet of their work would they want to prioritize. So what you see right now are the 11 pillars, plus there is 1 pillar that is program specific, which again goes back to the idea of participatory and them taking the ownership rather than coming from top down. So it has to really reflect what their program looks like. This is part of the survey that is going to go live in a couple of weeks from now, where every program is going to look at this and assess their own program. From next year onwards, the idea is that each program is going to sit with their respective stakeholders. So 4H would sit with their council members and maybe even with some youth and see where their program is. I'll just give you a snapshot of 1 pillar. This is community engagement is one of the pillars, and you would see this is how they are going to reflect and come up with evidences for it and scores, and which will help us move towards more data-driven, both hard data as well as soft data in terms of informing the practice. Let me talk about the resources. Resources, definitely, I'm very grateful for all the county support in terms of the specific dollars and the ask for monetary help that we reached out. So at least the last year, we were able to get all the grants, all the money that we asked for. This year, I know it was kind of tough, and we are still, but we have been, we are well above the mandatory limit of our reserve, so we are going forward with that. I was personally able to apply for 9 grants. We were able to get around $78,000. 1 grant, which is $86,000, is pending. This is with the city of Port Townsend, but with the federal order is kind of currently on hold. Let's see what happens with that. Now, this is what I was referring to in terms of my conversation with Mark, and what I want to talk about is how we have been able to gradually starting to move towards 2 people or 2 persons per program. For water resources, we are in a position to do that, hire a part-time. Similarly, for noxious weeds, where we have some funding, we are slowly inching towards that with two interns that we are hiring. But the process orientation, technology and knowledge management part, which was huge, let me talk about that. So I just want to show you some snapshot of what we have been able to do. And this is, in my understanding, a direct import for what the county can think of when it thinks of moving to Microsoft Office 365, the whole suite of applications. We have access to it because of our WSU kind of affiliation. So what you see on the screen right now is how every program now within Jefferson County, and you also see Clallam there, has a Teams of its own. So Teams is just one of the apps on Microsoft 365. And now, next slide, you would see how I would focus on Jefferson County Extension Team. This is the first team that we created, and this is how the layout is, where you have channels on the left, you have ongoing communication goes on Teams rather than on emails, which also means all the files are kind of linked onto this and all the other applications are linked to it. So what you see on the next slide is how all the files are now shared and are kind of hosted on the Teams. The big thing with this is, let's say tomorrow, and I'm not planning, but let's say if I leave, everything still is there, and everything now, every documentation is shared. It is improving the transparency. It is ensuring that everything resides not with a particular email ID, but with Jefferson County Teams, and we can easily switch ownership. That is one. More importantly, in terms of coming up with standard operating procedures, which we initially tried doing on forms or Word documents, but nobody refers to it. So we then went on to what is a planner app, and what you see on the snapshot as of now is the planner app and specific task cards in that. And you could see those checklist kind of things. So now we have a very simplified SOP, but in the form of these task cards, where you can assign people, you can assign the deadline, you can assign the priority, you can assign, is it in progress, is it already done? And then people can click on that checklist one by one. So what you see on as of now is impact reports for 2025, which will be done at the end of this year. But you have a task card, you have everyone assigned. And this is what a typical task card looks like. As you would see, you have the option of assigning it priorities. You can see person tracking, and the checklist is Bridget, who's the master gardener in this case. So this is one specific task card for master gardener, just as an example. Also down in the bottom right corner, you see attachments where the files associated with this are also linked. So you can directly move on to the specific files from this task card itself, which means that everything becomes far more organized and accessible. More importantly, this shows up in my planner. So this is when I click on my to-do list, it all automatically pops up and says, okay, this is important. This is you're behind on this. The timeline, for instance, you would see the due date, the red highlighted, shows that I'm behind on those particular task cards. You can switch views. So this is the board view. You can switch into grid. This was the grid view, but you can switch on the board view. You can switch on the schedule view, which is going to give you a timeline of the entire month or day. And you can also come up with these charts, or what I would call a dashboard, which would show you where you are. And there are options on the top right corner. You would see there are things like progress, due date. So you can filter it out according to various your own preferences as to how do you want to see it. We are yet kind of building this up. It's not robust as of now, but I can definitely, I'm now feeling so much more comfortable with how things are laid out and how things are moving, and I'm able to kind of keep a track of how things are moving with this. So with all of this, I just want to revert back to a slide that I had showed in the last two work plan presentations, which was, I'm just trying to move towards this kind of key zone in the center of this, which is, what are the county and community goals? What are the WSU priorities, and what are the capabilities that we have within the extension office? And trying to move closer and closer to this. And this is what I have as a task card for this year, which is, if you could focus on the right corner where I have these checklist items. So yes, we are moving forward, and we have already showed you the numbers in the work plan, which is just been continuing for a number of years. But hopefully from next year onwards, we would have followed all the things that are listed in the checklist on the right-hand corner, which is coming up, doing the program assessment, really seeing where the needs are, where can we improve. Logic models for each of the programs updated with KPIs, key performance indicators, and specific targets, which are based on robust analysis. Mapping the logic model to county and WSU priorities, and then really finalizing the work plan rather than just continuing to say, oh, this was done the last year. We just report these 3 things, 4 things out and go forward. And hence updating the calendar and getting a better sense of where things are. The work is definitely moving a lot slower than I had initially anticipated, but I also I know the reasons why. It is, I'm glad to report that people are feeling engaged and people can see the direction that we are moving in. We have invested a lot of time in the learning meetings and the team meetings, and those have started producing results is where I would say we are. And I'll end with that. And by the way, I have Teams access right now. So if anybody is interested in a live demo of anything, I can definitely answer. So open to questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Amit. I appreciate the different angle that you took today in your presentation, really talking about this system improvement. Heidi, you're online. Do you have any questions or comments for Amit?
No, I think it's an exciting use of a tool that's at our fingertips. I wonder how, how this would become public record, though. Would it become public record? How would you need to? I just wonder how you would do that with Teams. If you had a public record request for something about, say, noxious weeds.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that request?
Yeah, I would say this is very much similar to emails, because emails are under the purview of public records. So we can search for a specific communication. Typically, the public record request would be specific to specific terms, and we can search it. All those features are there. The files are currently being just stored, but are matched within Teams. So it's very much a folder system organization on its own. It's just that these 2 things are now speaking to each other. So I really don't think that is going to be an issue. And because all the other universities and everyone has already moved on to Teams and utilizing Teams, I think I'm just relying on the fact that because everyone else is doing, and Microsoft is selling to so many customers, so they would have thought about it as well. I haven't had a specific request, but I'm pretty confident that it's going to work in the same way if we were managing emails and folder systems separately.
It would be interesting to ask our public records team, but I've used Teams, and my guess is that it's gonna be it would be a lot easier for them, because things are, like you said, things are already categorized together. That is what Teams does.
You have a project, so
Right.
to search about a particular project,
Yeah.
it's already everything. is there.
Everything's already categorized, and that's kind of the efficiency of the tool. So I thank you for showing it. So
But
your team's already moved on to this.
They have
using it.
moved on. They are in the process where every program has a team, and they've started putting all their documents. There are some issues in terms of, especially with PDFs.
Yeah.
Which need to be signed, and then kind of, you can't directly sign if the document is already on Teams.
Right.
So we are trying to figure out where there is a way technically where some of your files can be on your computer hard drive, but it is talking to the online Teams.
I see.
So yeah, those are the kind of hiccups that we run into where we think, oh yeah, we figured it out, but then you come with these kind of challenges.
New challenges.
Yes.
I love
then-
the continuity. I love the continuity piece on it. I love that, as you mentioned, when you never leave. No, if you were to ever leave, or if anybody on the team was to ever leave, that everything is stored kind of chronologically, and it would be logical to follow. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, Amit promised 10 years when we hired him.
Yeah, I remember. I was there.
I was there.
Just don't, if I want to extend it to 11 or 15, just don't throw me out, okay?
No, 10 was a minimum.
At least.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've asked Amit to present this to my senior management team tomorrow
Okay.
morning.
Oh,
Great.
Yeah,
Because it's a brilliant and innovative way to manage work,
It
Right.
is.
so.
I have a question about the migration itself, which I've coordinated many migrations to new software systems, and that's always really hard. And I mean, it is a challenge in itself. But what was your experience of migrating, or are you, did you do one big migration of files, or are you having staff do it a little at a time? I guess that's your main question.
Yeah, I'll first talk about my experience and then talk about where the teams are, and every program coordinator is at a different stage with different kind of challenges. From when I joined for the first 3-4 months, I was trying to work on the typical thing where I had folders.
Mhm.
And I was looking at some kind of an app that, because I know that there were different programs and I needed a program management tool. And I did my own research as to what could be a knowledge management plus program management thing. With all the research that I did and the feasibility, the fact that Microsoft is something that everybody uses, it was the one that was the most obvious for the fact that it is, let me say, it is not the most intuitive, and I'm not a fan of Teams. I had not used Teams, but it emerged out just for the sake of continuity.
Yeah.
The most obvious app to go for.
Yep, if you're gonna use it fully.
Yeah.
And get all its advantages,
Right.
right?
So that is one. Also, because it was free for us at least. I mean, we pay a small amount, but comparatively less expensive. So that was another reason.
Mhm.
So I have now moved on to the system where any file that I create is on Teams.
Mhm.
So I'm not creating any file that is on my computer. Most
but
of
it's
my,
safe somewhere else as well, right?
it's
Yeah.
saving everything on the cloud. So everything that I am creating is on the cloud.
Okay,
I can download it if I want, and there are times, for instance, for the PDF signatures or whatever, I download it,
Sure.
but everything is on cloud as of now.
okay,
As for the legacy programs, which was the case with all my programs, where they had files stored on their program and they had to transfer it, many programs did kind of face that challenge where some files, if they tried moving the entire folder, some files were lost in the process. So that did happen. And people are doing it in different formats. I don't think everybody has moved to the stage where they are starting all their files are starting on Teams, which is ideally where I would want to be there. However, I would say I've also reached out to WSU, and if the county were to take this step forward, I think there is a lot of hand holding that would be required from someone who really understands this process. Because one big challenge for me was learning Teams and then testing it out first, and then asking and convincing my team to do it. And there were times where it was getting frustrating for everyone. So that is the transition is not as smooth as one would expect.
It's hard. I mean, one more thing I would just put on your radar when you present this to senior management team is to just kind of have your mind on file naming conventions, right? As we share those files together, that's the other thing I think we've probably all experienced is if we're all kind of moving files around in a shared drive, but we don't have any agreements about how we're naming files, it can be then very difficult to recall files.
Yeah.
But the opposite is also true. If we can make some basic agreements about how we name files, it can make the process a lot more smooth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just one more comment before I end, which is I have only shown or focused on 2 of the apps, which is Teams, and within Teams, Planner and To Do in some ways. But there are so many other apps that can be embedded and come with the Microsoft 365 suite, which I haven't really explored. There is Power BI, there is Copilot, which is there, the AI thing. And so there is definitely a lot of unexplored potential. I don't have the capacity, I don't have the knowledge now, but I would imagine that Microsoft, being Microsoft, obviously is working on this, and there is going to be immense possibility if we are truly able to exploit all the things and all the features that are there. But obviously, it'll need hand holding, and based on my experience, even with WSU, people are still kind of not utilizing it as 100%.
Mhm. Well, I can see your systems thinking, expertise being put to work for WSU Extension and your research background and all of those things. I can really appreciate how you're applying that to really creating sustainable systems for WSU. So I like that. I'm a big fan of systems thinking, and I can see it at work here in your process for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really, it's impressive. I'm excited. I'd love a live demo with you. We're kind of out of time now for detailed questions, but I'd love to go through it. I'm happy to come out to the extension office.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
follow up, and I'll ask my questions. then,
Yes,
because
would
we're
love
just
that.
about out of time. Heidi, any last thoughts or questions? Okay,
No,
great.
thank you.
Well-
Thanks for your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alma. Great to see you. Thanks for coming out in person. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Right, we'll see you soon.
Okay,
I'll leave these in the office.
yes,
Great.
that would be great. Thanks.
We'll share 'em.
So we're gonna go into an executive session now with the county administrator, the chief civil deputy prosecuting attorney, the Department of Community Development Director, the Public Works Director, and the Assistant Public Works Director regarding potential litigation exemptions outlined in the Open Public Meetings Act, RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses I. We're going in for 30 minutes. We're going in, that'll be enough. At 2:01, we'll come out at 2:31.
Oh, 2:31, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back. We are coming out of the executive session. We do have one motion to make. Are you ready?
About the,
We want
oh,
to authorize Chair Eisenhower.
right,
Uh-huh.
so I would move to authorize Chair Eisenhower to negotiate a license for log storage on county-owned property for the purposes of bridge projects.
I will second.
Okay,
Yep, this is regarding the Big Quilcene Bridge. I don't know, Heidi, anything to add? No, okay, let's take that motion real quick. There's nothing to look at because we're just authorizing Heidi to communicate with the
Public comment.
Jamestown Tribe. We will open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on this motion, we would welcome you. You could hit raise hand button or *9 if you're on the phone. Oh, I'm still not in there.
No hands are raised.
All right, I will close public comment. Okay, so we will go now on
Vote on the
to
motion.
vote on the motion.
Yeah.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Great. So next we'll go on to a proclamation about Red Cross Month. We have one person here. I don't know, Heidi, are you at a place that you can read with us?
Yeah, I got those opened up.
All right, the
Okay.
American Red Cross proclamation. We'll start with that and then we'll go from there. So why don't we go Heidi, Heather, Greg.
Sounds good.
Okay. Proclamation. Whereas the American Red Cross is a humanitarian organization that eases people's suffering during life's emergencies throughout Washington, Oregon, across the United States, and around the world, and
Whereas South Puget Sound and Olympics Red Cross has a long history of helping our neighbors in need by delivering shelter, care, and hope during disasters, also making our community safer with preparedness programs, CPR, and first aid training, supporting military and veterans and their families, and providing life-saving blood to our medical community. And
Whereas caring for one another is at the heart of our community and exemplified by the people of Jefferson County, whose simple acts of kindness, including through the Red Cross, provide help and hope in people's most difficult moments. And
whereas Red Cross Month is an international celebration that calls attention to the importance of ordinary individuals that lend a helping hand to make an extraordinary difference for neighbors in need. The program provides emergency shelter, food, and comfort for families displaced by home fires and other disasters, and conducts blood drives for patients, accident victims, and people with sickle cell disease and other life-threatening conditions. They support military members and veterans along with their families and caregivers. And
Whereas Red Cross has provided first aid and CPR training to help others survive medical emergencies and has delivered international humanitarian aid and reconnected loved ones separated by crises around the world since 1881. And
wow.
Whereas the Red Cross continues to carry out the organization's 144-year mission of preventing and alleviating suffering. People have stepped up to help others in need, whether it was responding to disasters across the country or rolling up their sleeves to give more than 148,500 units of blood in our region when our country faced a severe blood shortage. And
Whereas the life-saving work of the Red Cross is vital to strengthening our community's resilience. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim March 2025 as Red Cross Month. We invite you and others to join the Red Cross mission by volunteering, giving blood, learning life-saving skills, or making a financial donation. Approved today.
wow, I
Alright.
love these proclamations.
I know, they're
We've said
good.
this before, but it's so educational and it gives you just a real scope of the importance, these things that we lift up. So invite Heather to make any
you
comments.
want to make a motion? Let's approve
Oh,
the
yes,
proclamation.
absolutely. I would make a motion to approve the proclamation for the American Red Cross Month.
I'll second.
All right,
Alright.
Heidi seconds. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Heather, would you like to say, you want to say something? It's low stress here.
Oh, yeah.
This is your microphone
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, just stay on the podium, just stay on.
Okay, from there.
So, on behalf of the American Red Cross, it's an honor to receive this proclamation and to serve Jefferson County. We look forward to doing the safety fairs, supporting your veterans at the Port Townsend stand down.
Mhm.
And our disaster action teams have helped a couple home fires so far this year, so I know hopefully, and the smoke alarm, your East Jefferson County Fire Department smoke alarm
Mhm.
program, we've been able to provide free smoke alarms for that, and that keeps your community safe.
That's
So
great.
I'm glad to be able, well, we are glad to be able to help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah.
Just replaced all my smoke alarms. Got to do it every once in a while.
Good
Keep
for
yourselves
you.
safe.
Did you replace the alarms or just the batteries?
The alarms themselves, they only last a
Signing it
decade
right
or
now.
so.
Okay.
So I let Heather know that we'll be, you'll be signing it and then she'll walk it to the commissioner's office for the seal.
Did you hear that, Heather?
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you. Yeah.
And I always feel a little, well, I know this is the first time I felt, not the first time I missed Commissioner Dean, but she always would point out at this proclamation that she was related to Claire Barton.
Oh.
Who is, who started Red Cross, but yeah, such good work that the Red Cross does and, now more than ever, we appreciate your
Yeah,
service.
yeah.
So where are you based? Do you
I'm
actually?
I am the community volunteer leader for both Jefferson and Clallam County, but
Okay.
we're based in Sequim, actually Carlsberg.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, so we've got a couple of really great volunteers here in Jefferson.
Great,
So, yeah,
Thank
actually
you.
about 3, so.
okay.
Serving our area. Thank you
Excellent.
so much.
All right, well, you can have this, Heather, and if you, as you're leaving, if you go in the last door on the right,
Yeah.
you can talk to ADL and she will put the stamp on it and
Thank you so
yes,
much.
thank you so much. She'll need to make a copy, of course, as well.
Thanks a lot.
All right, we see if Diana McDade is in the Zoom room at all.
I don't see her unless she's a caller on the line.
All right, I know we were
Did you
expecting
guys already
her.
did you guys already do the other proclamation?
You did not do the other proclamation.
No.
We-
Do we have anything else?
Oh,
No.
yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you for
qualify,
offering though. Your volunteerism is duly noted.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, let's
She could be a good advocate for that.
let's go ahead and do it, and I will tee this up, being the mail on
The
the
token
board.
mail. Yeah.
The token mail, this was something that came out of the Biden White House, actually. And I thought it was pretty powerful when it first came out, and it seems, as a parent of a daughter, as well as a husband
Very
to my
empowering.
wife, and, a son of a mother. I thought that women's rights were just going up. And so to see my daughter have less autonomy over her own body than my wife did,
Mhm.
and is really dispiriting, you know, and this is not a binary statement or anything, but just to recognize that yeah, women are great, and they have been really historically held down. What was it, 1974? You didn't need your husband to go in with you to get a credit card?
Yep.
I mean, it's not been
That's
very
our
long.
lifetimes.
Yeah.
That is in our lifetimes. Yeah, I got to read this with my daughter,
Mhm.
14-year-old daughter, last night, and both of us tear up and, you know, have good, kind of the foundation of some really good conversations
Yeah.
too, which was really good. Very ironically, I don't think I told you this, but we most recently started, she and I, watching Greatest American Hero. Do you remember
Oh,
that
I
TV show?
do, yeah, the suit
From-
that he couldn't use, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really interesting because there was in the first episode, we were kind of sitting and there was, you know, culturally embedded, you know, misogyny
Yeah.
in all levels of our culture and
Right.
including TV shows,
Mhm.
probably maybe most in TV
Yeah.
shows. It was interesting because she was kind of sitting watching and we're enjoying this very retro show and I could see her gonna go like,
Yeah,
like, what's going on with that? And I was like, yeah,
that's
that's
the way it used to
that's
be.
how we treated each other. But hopefully we can still move in the right direction, and this is a great
Yes.
proclamation.
Yeah, so why don't we read in the reverse order? We'll go Greg and then
Okay.
Heather and then Heidi. And I made some adjustments to that, but I guess I took out a lot of words too.
You
2020 is still.
added some very important current information as
Oh.
well, which I appreciated.
Okay.
You're not saying the draft is changed, you're saying it was changed.
It was changed prior to
Prior,
posting,
I think.
yes, I didn't change any, reading it off the AV capture. Okay, so a proclamation. Whereas on August 26, 1920, after decades of hard-fought advocacy, women won the right to vote, and our nation moved one step closer to living out our sacred ideal that all people are created equal. On Women's Equality Day, we honor the movement for universal suffrage that led to the 19th Amendment, celebrate the progress of women over the years, and renew our commitment to advancing gender equity and protecting women's rights. And
whereas with the ratification of the 19th Amendment, millions of women across the country were finally able to make their voices heard in our elections. Yet many women of color who helped lead the universal suffrage movement were effectively denied those rights until the Voting Rights Act passed 47 years later. Today, the struggle to ensure that every American can cast their ballot continues. Women are less likely to have time to vote in person with increased caregiving demands and a disproportionate share of low-wage, inflexible work. The right to vote and to have that vote counted is essential to the future of our democracy. And
whereas all Americans should have the opportunity to fully participate in society. No one's rights should be denied because of their gender. As the US Supreme Court, the federal government, and the states across the country strip women of their ability to make decisions about their own bodies, families, and futures, we remain dedicated to protecting access to critical reproductive health care, regardless of gender, race, zip code, or income. We will continue to defend the right of all people to live free from a gender-based violence. And
Commissioner Eisenhower.
Whereas, as we continue our work to advance gender equity and equality, let us celebrate the contributions of women throughout our history and honor the stories that have too often gone untold. Let us recognize that fundamental freedoms are interconnected. When opportunities for women are withheld, we all suffer, and when women's lives are improved, we all gain. Let us strive to create a nation where every woman and girl knows that her possibilities know no bounds in America. And
Shall I go?
go ahead. Sorry, I screwed up the order. I
No
apologize.
worries. Whereas Jefferson County strives for inclusiveness and non-discrimination, words that I'm proud to be able to say today.
Mhm.
On Women's Equality Day, we celebrate the trailblazers who fought to deliver a better future for America's daughters. We recognize the work that remains to ensure that everyone can fully participate in our democracy and make fundamental choices about their health and bodies. We strive to uphold our nation's promise of equality for all people. And
All right, I'll go. Since I'm now therefore be it resolved that the Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims March 8th, 2025 as Women's Day in Jefferson County and encourages all visitors and residents of the Olympic Peninsula to join in celebrating the spirit of and dedication to the women in our community. Approved this 3rd day of March 2025.
So that's this coming Saturday, right? And
That's today.
March 8th,
Oh, wait.
which is
Oh, yeah.
International Women's Day
Yes,
is
March
March
8th.
8th.
It's March,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's approved March 3rd, but it's March 8th. yeah.
Right, yeah, so for people to
Coming
keep
Saturday.
an ear out for ways to celebrate on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy to move that we proclaim March 8th as Women's Day and adopt this proclamation.
Thank you. Seconded.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving March 8th as Women's Day, indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. Thank you guys very much for serving with me. It's I learn a lot from you every day, so we're definitely stronger in Jefferson County for having a majority women's board.
And diverse
No,
leadership.
we're not guys, Greg, we're gals.
Did I say guys?
That's all right, we're all
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, I'm just teasing.
Thank you for bringing this forward. It's
Yep.
really
Yeah,
meaningful.
it's great.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that done, we'll welcome Diane, if you want to come up with next to Mark, we've got an update from the Jefferson Aquatic Coalition survey, and I can start with one thing that I kind of did without getting your guys' approval, but it was a bit of a rush to get approval to get the survey into the Mason PUD ones billing, so I gotta get into the meeting.
I think it was definitely appreciated by people in
Yes,
South County to be able to.
totally,
get a
so
little more
it'll go,
access.
it's gonna cost $300 or $385 out of that same
Okay.
grant, so I need to get into the Zoom meeting real quick, and then I will launch your PowerPoint. Sorry, I was not in the meeting. And with that, I'll pass it over to Diane to maybe tell us, as I'm getting this up, how's the survey going so far?
Okay, great, thank you. Diane McDade, Jeffco Aquatic Coalition. So thank you for inviting me here. We just wanted to take a few minutes and just bring you up to speed on how it's going. We're at the midway point. And so I sent on Thursday afternoon with the assistance of Kevin Hitchcock 2 maps to you that I think were in the documents related to the agenda. And then, and that's really what I was planning on talking to. And then Sunday morning, our survey team met and we have some new data about the total number of respondents to the survey. So I wanted to add that in. And so I forwarded a deck this morning that is now in the public record that includes some additional information.
great.
So we can go over that now. First of all, I just wanted to say that, you know, this survey is a project that's joint between the county and our organization, our nonprofit, and it's been great to work with Kevin, who just joined us here in the room.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Kevin, thanks for your work on it.
And he and I collaborated in the last week or so in looking at the breakdown by geography, because one of the big concerns we have about this survey is getting a representative sample from across the whole county. So you can go to the next slide. So the first thing I asked Kevin if he would help us with was to estimate the total county population in each of the 14 survey geographic areas. So we created a drop-down list in one of the questions and we had 14 areas, but they really didn't map to particular census blocks or anything like that. It
Or
was just-
precincts.
Or precincts. And so Kevin was really kind enough to figure out how we might take those 14 and make sense out of them with the map and worked on that. And then he also calculated, and we'll come to that map in a minute, the percentage of the population in each of those areas, which is really what the target goal here was, to figure out how many people were roughly speaking in each of those areas. So that's what we're gonna see in the first map. And it is very difficult to read the actual labels. So I put them over there in a graph on the left-hand side, and I'll put on my reading glasses to look at them. I hope you can read those numbers. But before I move ahead, Kevin, was there anything that you wanted to say or comment about your process? Because I don't want to speak for you of how you made this map.
Yeah, I started with the zip codes. So basically, the Port Townsend zip code, which is massive, is now split up into Discovery Bay, Cape George, Calipoint, and then outside Port Townsend, inside Port Townsend. Marrowstone is its own zip code, Chimacum is its own zip code, Port Ludlow is its own zip code. Gardner is actually the Sequim zip code. And then we divided the Quilcene zip code just to cut the coil off. And Brennan is its own zip code.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little truck to know exactly where to draw lines like Discovery Bay. What does that really mean? So Kevin, who's really knowledgeable about the area, just looked at the census block information and made the call. Yeah. And I wish now we had done this before the survey and we had shown a map to people in the survey and said, tell us where you live,
Right, yeah.
But if we ever do it again, we'll take that approach. So, so then the populations in each of those areas are broken out. Now we're working here with 2020 census data. That was the baseline. And we know the survey, the county's grown since then, but that's the best available data. So these numbers aren't 100% up to date to 2025, but they're what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically you can easily see the percentages of population in each of those areas. So that's our baseline. And now if we move to the next slide, we wanted to compare those percentages with the percentages of what we've been getting with survey responses in each of those areas, and then look at what the differential is. So those are the next three items that we wanted to kind of document. And so Kevin created a second map. We can go to the next page or the next slide. And what this does is it takes those same areas and shows their raw population numbers, their percent, and then switches over. That third column is the percent, well, the fourth column is the percent of survey responses we've received thus far in those areas. Now, this is of all the responses of the survey, the percentage that we've received from those areas. And then what I'm calling the differential is the final column to the right. And as you can see, it varies a great deal. The only one that's even right now is Chimacum. It's kind of amazing. It came in at 5.6% of the population, and that's exactly what our survey responses were too. But many of them are off by, decent margins. I mean, it looks like a small margin, let's say for Brennan, but it actually, when Brennan is 4.1% of the population and we've got 1.9 responses, we have some work to do there. But the biggest gaps that we have are in, and I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, are in the three major larger HOAs. So in Calipoint, we're off, although Calipoint isn't terrible, but when you go down to Port Ludlow, they have 15.3% of the population, but we only have 7.1% survey responses from that area. So we're off by a minus 8.2%. And the same thing is true in Cape George, going back up to the top. They have 5.7% roughly of the population, and we only have them representing 1.7% of the survey responses. So we're -4, it should be 4.0 there. So, I just wanted, this is like what I'm calling a gut check to see where we're at. Now we have places where we have overages, where there's a lot more people responding. So in Port Townsend city limits, we have 30.8% of the population, but our survey responses are 44.2%. So we've got a higher number there. So in the West End, right now, when this was done, this is done off of Thursday morning data.
Okay.
We actually, over the weekend, when we looked at this, we now have 3 responses from the West End.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we did this calculation.
Probably all folks that live on the Upper Hill Road, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So at the time we did this, we didn't have any. So I just wanted to sort of just call this all to your attention as and for us, as a gut check of where we have work to do. And I'm particularly concerned about the places where we're under. I mean, the overages are over. I mean, but the ones that are under, are places that we have our homework to do this month to try to up the numbers.
Mhm.
I still think that there will be enough, even if we quit the survey right now, I think we have enough to make it statistically valid if one does something further, which is to weight the survey results.
Yes.
And our team knows how to do that. And so we would show these raw numbers, but then we would also weight the numbers. So you can see, and we might do that only on certain questions. But we'd want to do that to get a more balanced view of what people are telling us. And we can do that in our final report. But there was new data that came out on Sunday, so I just wanted to go to the next slide. And I made this slide, it's not as pretty. I wanted you to just see a different percentage point, which is that we now know when people respond, many people are responding on behalf of their entire household. So they're counting their partner if they have one, and their kids if they have them. So it turns out that at this bottom of this slide, you can see that we actually, oh no, it's the next one, sorry. This is just showing us those same percentages of the population, and then our survey count, the raw number there, where it says survey count. That's the raw number of the members who live in the household, not just the person who answered the poll. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what that means is that we actually, some of our percentages move around and get a little bit more in tune. I mean, some are still out of whack, but this is the actual number of people. So it's actually related in a better way to population, because obviously our population includes children, and we didn't want children to take the poll. So anyway, when we do our final report, we'll do it off of the actual number of household people represented in all the survey responses. All right. And then
Can I ask,
yeah,
Diane?
yeah.
I'm just wondering, what did you guys decide on as a multiplier for households?
When did we decide what?
How did you decide what multiplier to use from
Oh, no,
one
this is-
survey?
This is self-reported information. So in the survey, we say how many
I see.
members have in age groups. This is actual data
actual
people
data.
provided
Okay,
to us.
great. I just wanted that to be clear.
This is very real data. Yeah, it's self-reported by people. Because we
Great.
asked them later on about those same people and their swimming abilities and that sort of thing too.
Right.
Which by the way, and I didn't want to maybe get into this too much, but Kevin, we might have another ask for you, which is we want to also get weighting across ages, because we're seeing big differences in the answers so far based on age group.
Sure.
Their interests and the things they want to do, and just a lot of good data. And I don't know if it's possible to get this would be countywide, not by
brain working.
not by the
I can
geography,
see him
but
thinking about.
like if we can get any age group data that we think is realistic or not.
Yeah, census data is just
Yeah,
on 18 and under 18 and over, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is
okay,
that what we did for the pool, for the drive time?
The drive time.
yeah. Anyway, I'll take that up with you later, because we have age groups broken down like, 35 to 54 and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah, maybe not that granular, but it would be great to know about kids. So anyway, the final slide is, and this is just a screenshot, so I apologize for how this looks, but basically here you can see the sum total of people is on the left that answered for each area, and then the number of responses is on the right-hand side. So just the number of just how many people actually answered the poll themselves, and they were representing the sum over on the left of people. And at the bottom of that sum, you can see we now have responses that are representative of 5,207. That was as of Thursday.
Right, that's great.
So that's where we stand right now with all of this. And I am not the data guru, but I think when we do the final report, you can maybe hear from the folks who are really steeped in the data.
Diane, there are more entries on the right than there are on the
Because of
left.
the west.
No
Yeah,
families, no
Which one is
left.
missing on the left?
The west
West end.
end.
Because at this
We didn't
data
have
has
any,
0.
and so we didn't, this is a screenshot from the actual
Okay.
survey thing.
So
So
it's zero on both sides.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you'll see in the data that some people had the option on their address of saying other. But we have quite a few of, we have like close to 100 of those, and we're gonna end up in the final report just putting them and slotting them into what we believe is their geographic area based on our you know, our categories. So there's, I know that certain people love data and will be marinated in all this, and so there'll be a lot of opportunity to do that, but this is just our halfway kind of report, and so take questions or guidance on next steps.
Yeah, well, I'll give a little bit just real quick and then pass it over to Heather and Heidi, just, obviously that low number in Brennan is something that is logical since we weren't in PUD bills out there. So working on getting in their PUD bills this month, hopefully will help getting a higher number of people there. I did push Kevin on a few of the numbers over the weekend and the West End number, because that is a lot of people for the West End.
I was surprised myself.
That includes Olympic Correctional Facility, because it's based on the census
Oh, it
data.
does?
It was only like
It's more like
actual residents.
It's more like 1.4 actual voters, so so those numbers are maybe, we might be able to adjust, but I think, Kevin, you can describe it, what the rationale behind that is just using straight census data, basically, right?
That's what we use for redistricting. The state OFM puts out a separate data set where they try to put all the incarcerated individuals in their last known place of residence. So there's 300 something people in the state data set that got moved elsewhere, and 30 something of them were just moved to Eastern Jefferson County, the rest of them outside the county.
Okay.
So
So that
So
changed
might
that.
adjust our
It's
goal.
more like 1.4%,
there.
I think, for the West End is the clean number, or the adjusted number, I should say.
yeah,
Sure, we will take any, this is purely now just,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's all about getting the ratios to
But we-
understand where you need to work.
Yeah,
Right.
Emphasize,
Where-
right?
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
That's a percentage of the
Questions, comments?
population.
No, I've gotten to wrap my mind around this a little more after attending one of the community meetings now, and I did, after that, I reached out to some of the people who have been contacting us for public comment on the West End, so I think that's what resulted in at least our first 3
Yeah.
responses, so I'm hoping they're gonna start spreading the word to their community so that we can hit that goal of responses in the West End. Kudos to Quilcene
Yeah,
for
positive.
overachieving in
Yeah.
their percentage.
We
and
always do.
hopefully
We always
you
do.
always
Yeah.
do, so hopefully we can achieve that in Brennan as well and some of the other communities.
Yeah.
And I just wanna highlight that piece of information that you just gave about weighting.
Yeah,
Which I think is really important for the public to understand. I first understood on Friday night when I learned that from you, and just such a great benefit that we have volunteers like Caitlin Bosley, who actually spends her professional life as a researcher and has this great experience designing surveys, that you were able to build on that expertise in the community is fantastic. But the weighting concept is, I think, really important for people to understand, so that that big, heavy weight of Port Townsend voters would be balanced out by the weighting process in our
right.
in our analysis. It's helpful.
Great. Heidi, do you have questions or comments?
I was just thinking in terms of those HOAs, Diane and et al. I know they have, a lot of them have newsletters or distribution lists or social media channels. Maybe reaching out to the HOAs themselves and finding out the best way to communicate with their residents might be a good way to up those percentages. I'm also happy I have a number of friends and colleagues who live in Cape George and Calipoint, so I could help with those, just distributing them to the people I know, but I think it might be more democratic to try and get it out to the whole resident pool of those HOAs. And then the other thing, I feel like we've gotten quite a few comments about the West End and this pool location. I remember that happening when we were talking about the pool in town as well. And I'm just wondering, with the PFD, can we geographically limit it to East Jefferson County or draw the boundary anywhere? No.
Not that I know. I mean, if we're
Maybe
doing
worth-
it just within a city, if there was a municipality doing it within a city, I think you can do it a city boundary, but I don't think we can draw a map around the service area.
I think,
Or leaving out certain precincts or something. Might be
We can find out as we go further. It's worth a double check, of course, but my reading of it is that we cannot.
Okay. It would be interesting to just super confirm that, because feels like it would be low hanging fruit if it was an option.
Yep,
Mhm.
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I certainly would not support paying for a pool 2 counties away if I was in the West End. It's an understandable objection. I'll just give a little bit of another update if there's no more questions for Diane, just that I connected Diane too with our public records team, just to kind of figure out what is gonna be a public record, how to
Right.
process those and everything, and so that communication is underway, and she's talking to Jenny, Ken.
Awesome. That's great.
So just by way of update, and
So that effectively, when all the survey data comes back, that there will be a tool for making it public, right, the results public record.
and you know,
Great.
we don't have access to it right now, but Jenny was quite clear that because the county partnered on the creation of it, that it is in fact already a public record.
Yeah.
So even if there was some question about some potential, even though it's an anonymous survey,
Subject
some
to the public record.
identifiable material, it's all gonna be a public record.
Great, that's how we like it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to her on Wednesday, and, one question is simply the nature of this. It would be like a giant Excel spreadsheet, and it would be very, I think, challenging for people to parse. There's gonna be so many rows and so many
Yeah.
columns, and so. Anyway, we're gonna talk about that,
Yeah.
because it will all be there, but the ability to parse it
Mm-hmm.
will be potentially difficult, and so. Anyway, that's gonna be the focus of our conversation.
Yeah, whatever the reporting tools are for your survey.
However you parse it
Software.
is a public record, and the raw data set is a
Well, all
public
the raw
record,
data will
but yeah.
definitely be there, it's just, well, anyway, it's complex, because it's a platform releasing, right, and
Mhm.
anyway, it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, well, we've begun to think through what might be
Yeah.
possible.
Oh, I love that you're thinking about it now and not at the moment
At the end.
someone makes a public records request.
Right,
That's
right.
fantastic.
And I will just say that the 1,000+ comments that we have are extremely revealing and really interesting. And so that, I think, will be also something that we want to find a way that people can, I think those could be segmented off, and anyone can read through that. It's the part of trying to connect all the data that's the hard part.
And do some analysis
Yeah.
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I have been using deep research on ChatGPT to do hermeneutic qualitative analysis on comments, and you can just kind
Oh,
of feed
yeah.
all that into their deep research thing, and it will give you themes that come through and kind of quantify different themes. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
All right, any last questions for Diane? Well, you have kept your word about continuing to
You
keep
sure
us
have.
abreast of the progress, and have been great partners as we try to navigate this challenging thing. So just to update you officially, we're still working with our legal department, but we look to have pushed the hearing till after the survey data comes in at the beginning of April. So we're looking to have that hearing on April 7th, though we haven't set it exactly yet.
And we might change the location. That's still up in the air too.
Okay,
If it needs to be some larger space.
Okay,
Gotcha.
great, thank you. All
okay,
right.
great.
And thanks for your support.
Yep, thanks for your help, Kevin. All right, thank you, Diane.
I might just re-highlight the very small size of this nonprofit.
Yeah,
Jefferson Aquatic Coalition or Jeffco Aquatic Coalition, that you are a very small organization doing a very big job and making a huge effort. So
Oh, it's really
Thank you.
great.
yeah, no, it's been great. Okay, so left on our agenda, we started a little bit of briefing. Heather and I had briefly started it. We have legislative update as well. I don't know, Heidi, are you still with us? Are you itching to get off here? What's your
What's your
afternoon
schedule?
look like, or evening, I guess?
It's 6 here. It's getting dark.
Okay.
I would say I sent you guys the WASAC hot bills, like this bill status, and highlighted the housing bills that are still alive and the WASAC is prioritizing this morning. And
on that.
And I don't have an update right now because LSC is this week. So when I get back tomorrow night at midnight, I'm gonna go to LSC on Wednesday. And so I will
Wow.
have I will have a legislative update for next Monday. But I would just say in terms of a legislative update, I am here in Washington DC and was able to meet with both Senator Cantwell and Senator Murray's staff today. 3 staff each on a number of issues with Commissioner Ozias from Clallam County. And we agreed in advance of those meetings that we were going to focus on the roads issue on the West End.
Hey,
And through our conversations on the roads with those staff, it's pretty clear that things are really the perception that we have at home from the media that things are in a really chaotic state is true on the ground here. So we were talking about the inability to really connect the federal highway ER funds to WashDOT, because those are federal funds that WashDOT deploys for emergency repairs. And there isn't a clear pathway to do that. So one of Senator Murray's staff, who's the transportation staff, was super helpful and said, well, that's one option, but we should also look at the FLAP funds that we already have, maybe reallocating some of those. That would still take a doing, like getting some act of, I don't know what agency distributes the FLAP funds from is it the Federal Highway Administration? To allow us to reroute some of those funds that are set aside to use lower down the road in the future. And then another idea that this staff person had was to do a congressionally directed spending request for the repairs, but that would take until 2026. So that would not be a this season repair. If there was a way to use any funds that we have and do a correct congressionally directed spending request for another need, because you can't use congressionally directed spending appropriations to reimburse an earlier payment. So we couldn't, for example, use general fund or road fund or some fund that we have and then apply to refill that bucket with a congressionally directed request next year. So there's it's a bit of a shell game. And I proposed to Eric and Monty that when I get back, we circle the wagons and maybe pull in this LA for Murray, who's really knowledgeable and being super helpful. And then also,
I mean, the flap funds from the Milepost 5 project seem like by far the most accessible funds. And it's like putting it into that program downstream is not going to do any good if you can't get past 9.8. So I would say that's where we push them and see how we can do that. And Federal Lands Access Program, that's what FLAP stands for. It's about accessing land. So it's a very appropriate use of it.
Yeah. And he said that the FHA ER funds are not even really applicable for this use. Even though we've thought otherwise. But also they said that it's not clear that the transportation grants that have been promised will not be clawed back. Because
it's not unclear.
It's not clear that they will not be clawed back. It's not clear that funding we think is coming to us is actually going to come to us. And there was a bit of shocking kind of sentiment coming, and these are not hair ruffling kind of people. So it is as chaotic here as we perceive it to be in the media.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to hear my brief about Commissioner Randall or Congresswoman Randall's visit, but it's very, very similar sentiment having her here. So what are the next steps on pursuing the reallocation of the flat funds? what's next on that? If we were gonna.
Well,
if
that's what, I'm not sure, and we need to circle the wagons and find out what that is.
So next week, or this week, figuring out the next steps. Okay, and just while we're on the roads, there have been these multiple offers and public comment about sort of private efforts happening. I think Anna Macha even mentioned of GoFundMe that's happening, or somebody did, maybe it was Ed Bowen. And private offers of equipment that have been suggested. Is that something we fold into the mix? How viable is that?
You
It
can
seems like you
always
need
take
permits and-
donations for a specific thing. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that we would tell someone with their excavator, oh yeah, go rebuild that road.
Right,
So.
so that offer was suggested to me personally, and my first response is, well, I'm assuming there's a lot of
Take the
permitting
liability on
process.
this?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a permitting process around that, and that would
And
take
if
time.
they were to
make
do it and it were to fail with automobiles traversing it,
Right.
we'd be
Or
Like
they
we
injure
can-
themselves
litigation.
while doing it.
Right. The
yeah.
only connection there I could see is
Bad-
us,
bad idea.
renting that equipment as part of an approved project, maybe at a low cost, but that would be some
They-
benefit, but
Public Works knows how to do the work and they
Sure.
have the material.
It's not the
closed,
problem.
That's not the problem. And
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
that's
half the
fine.
cost on each one of these is the after the fact
Mhm.
permitting and mitigation that you still have
yeah,
to
you
do.
still have to do. Yeah, no, that was my sense of it too.
I
just
mean,
wanted to-
but we can take donations for a specific purpose, right? You can write a check to Jefferson County, for repair of the Upper Hoe Road and we can
Right,
apply that to that, but it's, that doesn't mean that it happens faster.
no,
Well,
and I just
Just so you know, I'm meeting with Brenda and Judy and Stacy tomorrow
Mhm.
at 3:30 to talk about
the dollars.
300,000 out of the general fund to do. Cause Monty said he could do the repair for that.
Okay.
Okay.
I get all nervous
Mhm.
about taking general fund resources, especially when you see our cash balance beginning to slowly be reduced. But anyway, we're gonna have the conversation.
That's
Okay.
great.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Mark.
that.
And also, makes it all the more important that we try to get some real information from the parks.
Right.
About their intent and, whether they're gonna be open.
Yeah.
Well,
And you're working on that, Greg, right?
They're gonna be here on, Sula has been, I reported this earlier, but Sula's been temporarily reassigned to
Yeah,
another.
yeah.
assignment. But Kevin will be here on Monday, virtually.
Okay. And Eric is meeting with the Federal Highway Administration today, Eric Kuzma.
great.
So we'll have more information soon, but it's just all the information's coming right now.
Yeah,
Right,
And it's kind of like we're building a new recipe, building the airplane while we're flying it, kind of, or developing a new recipe while it's in the oven or something. I mean, I don't know what the right analogy is here, but it feels really chaotic to me.
and
You know
one
what?
of the public comments that today talked about too, there's a lot of impact to Clallam County as well. So when we start talking about
yeah.
local, issues, we should start bringing Clallam County into the
That's
fold as
great.
well.
Can you hear the adverse impact on Forks?
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
Maybe we could split the cost with Clown.
yeah, I think they're.
Well,
they're
and
both-
Mark was with me, Mark Ozias was with me in these meetings.
hearing that,
And we were delivering the message in tandem and they want to help. So we, it's just all this stuff's happening right now. So we need to literally circle the wagons and come up with a plan.
yeah, I mentioned it in North Olympic Development Council too with Commissioner Ozias, so hopefully we can. Double up on that message. Before we move away from legislative comment, can we just talk really briefly about this Housing Impact Day, March 19th? I think that's coming up before we have another Housing Fund Board meeting, I believe, isn't it? Isn't that before? Or do we have another?
26th of
Yeah.
Yeah,
Housing Fund
26th. I don't know if you have any insight into how important it is for us to show up to Housing Impact Day, from your perspective, Heidi? As I
I
mentioned.
think it's one of our top issues. I think it's important, very important that we show up.
I think so too, and I found it to be very informative, and it's another opportunity to get right in front of our state legislators. I know we have good relationships there, but encouraging people from the community. I mean, it was last year coalitions of
Mhm.
people from each county that really obviously had literally the biggest voices, and, you know, it was kind of little old me walking around for Jefferson
Right.
County. I hope I did us proud, but
Yeah,
it was, I think it would be better for us all to be there.
okay,
And it does take a fair amount of coordination and education so that that coalition is there with a united voice and a united purpose. So
Mhm.
maybe some guidance from you, Heidi, which you've already provided, in some legislative updates on the, you know, and the hot list that we're focused on from a county perspective.
Mhm.
So that as people are going around and meeting as groups, with our legislators, that they have a few good solid talking points that keep us focused on a few short things that we really want to move the needle on.
I'm sure that coalition, if it's organizing a lobby day, is gonna do that. Talking points, priority bills.
They do, they do that from the larger, you know, housing advocacy perspective. Like last year, it was the rent stabilization bill that was a real focus, but I was there from Jefferson County wanting to advocate for some more specific things that, that were more aligned with, you know, specifically aligned with our initiatives. So I think that's helpful too, for our Jefferson County group to just make sure they hear.
Well,
what-
maybe you guys, as the housing commissioners, housing fund board members and all that, can come up with our top 3 to 5 bills that the housing fund board cares about. I mean, WASAC's priority legislation are really these 2 bills. One is the substitute Senate Bill 5576, which proposes a state sales tax for affordable housing for cities and counties.
Yeah.
And then the other one that WASAC has specifically said is a WASAC priority is this House Bill 1345, which relates to attached ADUs, and it creates an allowance for them outside UGAs and in landmarks. I think we have some of these regulations in place. Our county.
On that,
I talked about it
In
at plan commission like
Jefferson.
it was law.
yeah, yeah.
I can't
So-
hear you when you're both talking, sorry.
Oh, sorry, just that, yeah, we're ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we need to be jumping up and down about that one, but looking at substitute Senate Bill 5471, the middle housing bill. And if you guys want to take a look at that and let me know if that looks like one that's not one that WASAC's, it's not one of their priority pieces, but it's one they've been working on the whole session.
Okay.
Is
And the
this-
Lambert thing.
Is the excise tax off the table already? You know, how do you remember there was one that kind of echoed our priority to unlock that potential excise tax instead of sales tax, which would be a lot more palatable.
Mhm.
Isn't that 5576?
Well,
substitute
it wasn't a sales tax, it was an excise tax. When you purchase a property is when that would be taxed. So let's see.
It was on the list originally, because I remember coming back and reporting on it, but I don't see it on this hot sheet. So I'll need to ask Paul Jewell about that.
And 5576 is on a statewide tax on short-term rentals, so it's not a sales tax. It's but a short-term rental.
Right.
And then there's also the homestead bill that we were talking about earlier, that's Senate Bill
Yeah.
5770, which the assessors are really getting behind. I think that's one for us to explore too.
Yeah, well, we don't have time, well, we're not gonna have another housing fund board meeting prior to the 19th, but maybe we can put our heads together and get with, build a little coalition.
Yep.
That is not a quorum of the commissioners,
Mhm.
that can go down.
Could we put a workshop on the agenda for next Monday about this? So we can actually spend more than 3 minutes talking about it?
That would be great.
Do we have room, Carolyn?
I'm checking it out now.
That's a good idea.
Thanks.
Yeah, afternoon's wide open. Do you wanna do a 2
Great,
o'clock?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Yes.
we could set it for 2:30, because the prosecutor's office might go over,
Thank you.
2:30 on the
Perfect.
10th.
Perfect.
Excellent.
All right, should we invite anyone to that, affordable housing wise, Habitat?
Yeah,
or-
absolutely. Liz Reward, housing,
Yeah.
habitats. I think all of our housing providers might be interested in weighing in as well, the 3 primary housing providers. Of course, there's different issues there with homeless housing.
Are we doing homeless housing? Gone through 2 pins today. Homeless housing or affordable housing?
The advocacy day does address both.
Okay,
And I'll make sure to get the download of what the organizing group is advocating for. Usually
Okay.
they have their top hit list or hot list.
Mhm.
So I'll find out what those are so that we can maybe invite a coalition that's focused on both those and the priorities that we set that we
Heather,
want to
will
talk
you be
about.
doing the agenda request?
Sure,
I'm making a note for Adil because she'll be doing the agenda.
I'll do that.
And something else we might want to discuss at that workshop too, Heidi, you weren't here when I started my update, but we've had a request both from Dove House, who lost state funding that they previously had counted on for 2025, and OLICAP, which has a gap of funding to start the Coswell Brown Phase 3 as soon as they get construction done in July. Both are saying, hey, are there more funds to fund emergency shelter from the Housing Fund Board, which we're gonna look, but there aren't. I mean, we fully expended those funds. So we might want to just talk about, general fund dollars and talking to other partners like the city or Jefferson Healthcare as well. So it's just kind of part and parcel of the same thing. I don't know if you guys wouldn't mind having a bit of a confab on that before we go back to Housing Fund Board to consider an RFP or something else. Knowing what we might have capacity for would be helpful.
It's really a critical emergent need.
All right.
I think we're gonna
Good.
see more and more requests for our money.
We are.
As we have less and less.
Yeah.
Heidi, how are you like itching to get out for food? We can cut you loose anytime. I know you've had a full day already.
Well, isn't
We're
it?
almost- It's 3:30.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to go.
Do you want to tell us anything
Whenever you're
about
ready
that?
to let me go.
I mean, we'll do just briefing and calendaring is all we have left, kind of. So do you want to spend any time on that, or we can let you go? I guess that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I told you a little bit about the tenor of the meetings. They were good meetings, and I feel like we've got good representation and staff. I mean, I'm always super thankful when I get in a room with those smart young people who are just their brains are ticking and they're trying to come up with, solve the problems. But yeah, it's an interesting time. It's a really interesting time. And I think that as these changes hit the street, these tariffs and all the big changes, we were asking questions like, well, do you have any sense of the timing of, when, the budget timing and, or we were asking these questions of the staff and they're like, no, because everything changes every day. It's like the pixie sticks get thrown up every day and they land, and then there's the time. And so the Democrats have not been involved in the budget process. So, there's not a bipartisan, thing happening back here. So, I mean, it's just, I think it's a challenging time because people are used to working together, rolling up their sleeves and doing whatever they have to do to get things to solve problems. And the sleeve roller uppers aren't being invited to the table to solve the problems right now from our delegation. So, but they're being really smart and they are at the table. They're finding ways to be at the table. So, it's like the Etch-a-Sketch gets shaken about once a week and they have to redesign the roadmap. So it sounds incredibly challenging. Yeah, I mean, I could say a lot more. I've been in, but the conference has been good. I was in the conference all weekend. And we heard from the BLM and the Forest Service. I did the Public Land Steering Committee all day on Saturday, and just a lot of, they're really trying to figure out their work plans. Because there's a complete new leadership at every federal agency, and they're trying to figure out how to, do a 180 on their policies. And so, yeah, it's challenging. I'd love to talk to you more another
All
time.
right. Another time.
You
Yeah.
will.
Well, I'll give my briefing, but you can cut out anytime you
Okay.
need to go get
I'll
some
go.
dinner.
I'll
Okay.
go wander around in the dark.
All right. Enjoy.
Bye,
See you
everyone.
back here next
See you
week.
on Wednesday. See you on Wednesday.
Great.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, we can quickly kind of round out
Yeah, finish
our
out your week.
briefing and from Mark as well, and we'll go and look at calendaring, see if we have any conflicts or anything.
Okay.
As I was with you guys on Monday, kind of with the shelter stuff, also went out to the Gateway Visitor Center to visit with Jefferson Transit and Clallam Transit and the
Cool.
consultants as they were, and the surveyors were out there surveying, so we're gonna get kind of a mostly a design and wetland reports and all that stuff, stormwater reports by end of June. So we're gonna get a couple design options that they will bring forward, basically, so it's, making sure we have, those big buses, like the
Yeah.
straight shot bus is bigger than any buses that Jefferson Transit has.
Are they the articulated buses?
No, they're not articulated, you might not see it, they're 45 feet instead
Oh,
of
okay.
28 feet.
Just longer.
But, so they've got all the, the turning radiuses and everything, so they were kind of figuring out where they could go and where, the EV chargers might go and bathrooms and whether the building stays or goes, so they're gonna bring a variety of kind of penciled plans for us and Jefferson Transit and Clallam Transit.
That's
to look through.
exciting, and the potential of having that straight shot connection there, multimodal facilities.
Not just that, it would be more, it would be the
Awesome.
hub that Jefferson Transit's been
Yeah.
looking for. So Nicole was talking about on the COA, the operational analysis, the route study that we're doing. Having the number 1 from Brennan and the number 8 from Port Ludlow both meeting there too, so you can we can actually have more than one hub, basically. I guess we have 2 hubs right now, but having a hub in the South County would really open up the ability to use the transit center.
Yeah.
The transit agency as a real transportation method.
Well, transit came up a lot actually in Friday night's
Mhm.
aquatic center meeting, and really kind of making those connections about if there's gonna be aquatic center. How do we get there?
Right.
And, so anyway.
Yeah, no, it's important. Let's see, with Diane on Wednesday and also met with some bond counsel about kind of understanding bonding a little
Oh,
bit.
cool.
And it was really interesting. You don't hire bond counsel or an underwriter before you, you want them pretty quick, like we would probably want them before, assuming, a PFD, before the passes to understand what the implications are, but both underwriters and bond counsel get paid out of the debt. So, so you don't pay them anything beforehand, so they work speculatively and they're not going to want to get into a project that they don't think pencils. And he was like, it's a challenging project, pools. These were folks that were working in affordable housing, not.
But the bond size needs to be adjusted so that there's enough to pay the bond counsel and the underwriter.
Right,
Yeah, so if the project's 15, you might need 15.5.
yeah.
It's good to know, though, that they are invested in making
appropriate
it work.
choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they really are,
And they're trained in analyzing whether it will work financially. So that's actually a kind of a good check and balance.
They were very impressed with the Musselman report, actually. They said that's a great foundation and it was really informative. We also talked a little bit about affordable housing bonds, just because keep thinking about those 1590 capital dollars that we left. Kind of expected Jamie from Habitat to come and pitch on that we had talked about once before, but the ability to take those, I think I mentioned briefly in Housing Fund Board, but to take those, $100,000 for 10 years and say, we're gonna borrow the $5 million that you need right now and get this infrastructure in, so you could just move forward on the project. I think it would be a way to level up what we can contribute to affordable housing.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, and then I got really sick Thursday night, so Wednesday I was online all day long. So I did Housing Fund Board remotely. Thanks for coping with I was pretty out of it. I don't know. Did I seem out of it?
You did great.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not, I don't think you seemed out of it at all. You seemed.
I don't.
No
not
more than
well.
usual.
It was par for the
Yeah,
course, let's just.
par for the
no,
course. Yeah,
no, you
that's fair.
seemed, well,
Good.
in charge of your senses.
All right. Stacy walked by once and said, "Maybe smile more, top left."
They're good
Oh, yeah,
advisors.
yep, absolutely. Thursday, we had Jeff Com. I did that remotely too, out of an abundance of caution. And didn't go to the CAC open house, the Child Advocacy Center
Right.
open house, just so I
Because
didn't
was in
spread it
person.
around. Jeff Com's going well, getting ready for strategic plan, in Jeff Com. But they are fully staffed for the first time since I've been on the board in 2019, so it's very impressive.
Remarkable.
We had our first broadband JBAT meeting since I think I even took it off the list of commission, committee, but.
Oh, that's the good old days. I remember
yeah.
JBAT meetings.
Karen Bennett brought JBAT back to get an update from Will O'Donnell, and everything's moving along well. They're doing the hookup. They're a little behind schedule, but as is expected, just
Yeah.
real challenging and getting my house was an example of the challenge between the disconnect between contractors and then PUD that hook it up once it's on your house. In my house, there's a 4-foot concrete pad between the house and where they brought the fiber. And at least 4 contractors came by and I was like,
Not sure how we're
PUD
gonna
wants
do
it on the house and we can't just go across the pavement. And they said, "Oh, I'll be back tomorrow," and they would never come. And a month later, someone would come by, "Hey, are you still? Oh, huh, I'll be back tomorrow." And so that went on and on and on until we called PUD and said, "Hey, do you guys want to come out here?" And so they came out and looked, and
Did it go underneath?
no, they hadn't left enough fiber, but they need to splice that fiber and go around the side of the house so they can come in just straight on. So they need to get their splicers back out there and put another 25 feet on it so they can come in the side of the house. But they're having that kind of issue again and again, which is
Right.
delaying a lot of that first phase, which delays the second phase. But they're doing well. All the funding is good in hand, except for the BEAD funding, and they're skeptical about how much BEAD funding they're gonna get. That the state, $1.5 billion. And it's
Any of that threatened to be clawed?
he didn't have any information about whether it was being threatened to claw back. It's no one else, you got a private company or a municipality could apply to use those funds, and it was just, but there was a certain cost per unit to get the fiber to the house. And because these are all kind of the hard to reach places that were unserved, I think the cost that BEAD said was $7,000 per house, and they made a bid of $12,000 per house. And so that's quite a gap. So they might just go with some of the other companies, like all of Clallam County didn't get anyone applying for, or at least West Clallam County didn't get
Really?
anyone applying, is what Will said. So
Wow.
I know it's been a challenge sometimes, and there's a lot of 39 counties that are looking at this BEAD funding, so it's a big pot, but it'll go fast. And then we had our first OLICAP fiscal committee meeting on Friday, where, as I think I mentioned, we're going into smaller, we're still doing monthly board meetings, but we're the horizon is every other month board meetings, and then you've got a committee meeting or two every month. So just kind of more work groups and then coming together, because our board meetings always end up packed and unfinished and just kind of perfunctory in a lot of ways, instead of having the time, like we do, to really dig into stuff. And it was great. They consultant working on the finances is doing just yeoman's work, and everything is kind of lining out where you can hit one button and get all the the expenses, the profit and loss, or whatever, the expense and revenue reports for the whole agency or each different department, it's just a click of a button, so it's getting pretty close.
It seems to be a theme that, you know, so many organizations are really kind of for the first time looking at things like sharing information in succession situations,
Yeah.
really setting up systems that are gonna make things more efficient. I'm thrilled that
Yeah.
LECAP's going through that process.
Oh, totally.
Exciting.
And those were the high points of my week. I mean, Reverend Horton Heat on Friday night was a good high point too, but shouldn't crow too much about why I had to miss the swimming pool meeting, but I had it planned long before. So, Mark, you want to look back and then tell us what you have planned this week?
Okay. So Monday, the 24th, of course, was a board day. Tuesday, the 25th. We've had an issue with the corrections bargaining unit with medical insurance that we've been working diligently to try to solve. And so I had a meeting with Judy Shepherd and Sarah Melanson in the morning on Tuesday to discuss that. And then later, 18 meeting, Kevin and John were not there, so it was just me and Aaron Berg. On Wednesday, made a trip out to the sheriff's department to meet with Andy Bernsteiner and Dave Fortino to discuss jail medical. You know, the costs of that program have increased substantially this year. And then there was a noon meeting to talk about the lower Dosey-Wallops flood and erosion risk presentation with Tammy Picorni and others.
Oh yeah, I was at that too. That was really educational.
Illuminating, yeah. Very complex stuff. Especially the depths and
The LiDAR,
velocities.
yeah,
and-
totally.
Yeah, and where the water might go.
Yeah, well, that was one thing that came out of that was one of the biggest flood risks is the community center. And I
60?
really, yeah,
Was it?
yeah. It's not in the floodway, it's in the flood zone, but there's a real chance that like a north channel would appear if flooding happened and that the
hit
community
Brennan
center would,
Community Center.
yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
so we're looking
very
at
relevant.
alternate locations.
Mhm.
Of course, we don't have the money to build a new one. But hopefully the project, if it moves forward, will protect the community center, but who knows? And then 3:30 in the afternoon, we got our HR consultant, Bob Braun, on a Zoom call to discuss the medical program for the corrections bargaining unit, and we have a solution, thank goodness. Their premiums were scheduled to go up by $600 a month.
Whoa.
Because one of the members of the bargaining unit signed a piece of paper they shouldn't have
Oh, wow,
that committed them to a higher premium, and so they're switching providers.
okay.
And
That's the solution.
right, and their cost is actually gonna go down slightly.
Oh,
nice.
So
well, that's a win.
anyway, great reaction by Sarah Melanson and the finance team on that. Because that would have been a real morale buster.
Ooh.
And then I attended the Jeffcom admin board meeting until I had to cut loose and have my regular meeting with Amit. And then I attended the Public Works Lunch and Learn event where Samantha Harper talked about the sewer at length. Another full house, by the way. So we've had 3 of those and they've all been full houses. So that's a good initiative out of our HR department. And then we met the Community Wildfire Defense Grant team, met again with the 2 fellows from DNR. We met with them a couple weeks ago. They had a lot of substantial feedback on our grant application. We made significant improvements to it, and this was the second iteration of that. They believe our proposal is much better than it was, but they had a number of additional changes they would like us to make, and I think we've made those, so.
When is that due? Is it coming up soon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact date, but it's 7 to 10 days out.
Oh, okay, yeah, so
So we're not gonna have any difficulty
Wrapping it up.
meeting that deadline,
that's great.
and we're asking for 2.5 million
Mhm,
plus.
mhm.
So might be a long shot, but you know, even if we get partial funding,
Yeah.
it'll be a win.
Okay, that's fine.
And then I went over to the Child Advocacy Center. Great to see that thing standing up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Down in Clark County, we had a fantastic, it was called the Art Curtis Children's Justice Center.
Oh,
Okay.
And it did yeoman work,
Mhm.
and it's about time we had
Yeah.
this
Real
capability
more,
here. And I love the way they repurposed KPTZ building.
I heard about it, yeah, with
Yeah.
private interview rooms and such. and-
Yeah, yeah, and the
And she
whole
said
idea
that-
is to put the kids at ease.
Yeah, I think she had said, I can't remember, we were one of only a handful of counties in Washington state that didn't yet have a child advocacy center. I think, I wanna say maybe only 3 or 4 counties
Mhm.
left that didn't have them,
Oh,
so it was a big win for
Yeah,
us.
well, this county's maturing and growing up. Yeah,
Absolutely,
we didn't have a community wildfire protection plan.
right?
Yeah.
We were only one of like 6 or 7 that did
Mhm.
not have a plan.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was great. Then on Friday, a light day, I just had my every 2-week meeting with Josh Peters. So,
Great, how's this week look for you?
well, of course, today with y'all, tomorrow, senior management team and the risk management committee will meet at 10:30. And then the Law and Justice Council is being rejuvenated, and that's a noon meeting. I plan to attend that, and then AT meeting at 2:00. And then a meeting on, I mentioned meeting with the finance team to talk about the Hoh River, Upper Hoh Road repair.
Oh, great.
And I sent an email to Todd Milkey, County Administrator for Clown,
Yeah,
suggesting that we split the 300.
Mhm.
And I
Great.
haven't heard back from him yet, but, you know, Forks will take a financial hit. And that's a Clown County
You bet.
municipality, so.
Thank
We'll
you
see
for
what I hear
pursuing
from him, but 150 out of general fund would be a whole lot better than 300.
It sure would.
So then, so yeah, tomorrow's a busy one. Wednesday, kind of light, IT and directors meeting. Then on the 6th, I don't know if you were invited to this, but the PD is looking at putting generators, electrical generators in their water.
oh, cool,
Water lines.
yeah, love it.
And so I'm gonna attend that.
Hmm.
And then on Friday. Gonna meet with Josh and Brent. Gonna meet with Apple, and then Heidi and I are gonna meet with Mallory. That's our monthly forestry meeting.
Mhm.
And I would meet with Sean, but he's on a cruise.
Nice. All right.
So that closes out my week.
Great,
A little connectivity summit.
yeah.
Oh,
You wanna look, are you gonna hit the connectivity summit?
all 3 days.
Oh, nice.
Good,
All right.
yeah. You want me to go through mine this week? Tomorrow I am heading, I've got a couple of rescheduled things that I'm heading tomorrow. I'm gonna go down and see the Quilcene Community Center, meet up with Richard. I've been trying to do that actually, I'll, since the campaign, and hopefully
Okay.
I'll get to hit the Brennan one here soon as well.
Great,
But learn about Quilcene Community Center. I finally, third reschedule, I think I'm actually gonna meet with Vice Chairwoman
okay,
Lonnie Greninger tomorrow. We're gonna meet at, I'm going to her, so I
Yeah.
can kind of see some of her projects and talk through any issues. And then, Wednesday is a big like sustainability day. I'm meeting with, a beef and hay farmer, in the morning to talk about food system security. And then in the afternoon, I have my first food group meeting, which is the
Okay,
Food Systems
yeah.
Security Work Group of the Climate Action Committee that
Cool.
I've asked to be a part of. So I'm excited to do that and perfect to meet up with a farmer, talk through some of those issues. And in the middle of the day, I'm pairing up some regular comments that I've gotten from a resident that lives near the Jefferson Sportsman's Association
Oh.
and concerns about that, and I'm pairing that with a tour of Jefferson Sportsman's Association, the
That's
facility tour there. So I'm gonna do both of those things on Wednesday, all four. That's a big busy day. the Olympic Area Agency on Aging, O3A, their monthly meeting on Thursday morning, and then in the afternoon, I will meet with Wendy Bart from the Olympic Peninsula YMCA and Rich Childers from their board to talk about their early childhood learning and family support center.
Okay.
That's designed, yes, and I would expect that we'll probably also talk some about the aquatic center and their
Yeah.
perspective on that, so I
They're
think we're.
very excited about the path.
Yeah, so they're gonna kind of double up. I think that's mostly why Rich Childers is attending to focus more on that issue with me. Get me up to speed, and then also with Vicky Sontag and Audrey Morford in the evening
Great.
to talk about the Housing Fund Board 5-year plan and our work to help prepare the Housing Fund Board for that work.
Thanks for taking that on.
You bet. And then, hope to spend a fair amount amount of time at the Connectivity Summer Summit, potentially all through the weekend, definitely on Friday. And I have a couple of other meetings that I'm trying to fit in amongst those that I haven't quite confirmed yet. So working on that for Friday.
Sounds like a busy week.
It'll be a busy week.
Yeah.
As per usual.
Let's see, mine, of course, with you today. Tomorrow I've got the 2 shelter meetings and then meeting with one of our Parks and Rec Advisory Board members. And I'm still debating whether I'm going to the Dosey Wallops River Collaborative meeting, which I think will be the same presentation I just saw with Mark last week. So I don't know. I'm thinking on that one.
What is that Tuesday afternoon?
That is Tuesday from 6 to 8.
Okay.
Did you want to go to that?
Maybe. Let me look at my schedule and see, because I haven't seen that presentation.
Okay.
Kind of cool, but I mean.
You'd see the Brennan Community Center at the same time.
Oh, that's right, because it's there.
I would not go online. That rarely works. There is a Zoom option.
An appointment. What time does it start? 6?
6 p.m.
I might actually try to, would you send me information?
I
about
will
it?
forward this on to you.
Okay.
Yes.
I might try to attend. I might not be there right at 6,
yeah.
but I think I could be there a little later. I have an appointment that I need to get to with, for one of my kids, but it should allow me to get there by maybe 6:30.
That is great. Just say that I'm not going until that Heather is going. Fine, 6:30-ish. And then forward it on to.
Okay.
Oops, it disappeared when I said that, sorry.
Hold on, let's see if it shows up for me.
I was not able.
Oh, you sent it to
Yeah,
Tammy. It's weird when it does that.
Yeah, no, I should have known that by sending that note, I was declining it.
Yeah, then she'll just forward it on to me. Yeah, one of those just kind of educational moments for me to get up to speed on something I know not much about, although
Sure.
Tammy's presentation here was helpful.
Oh, yeah. And I have a lot of, got to get ready for my Ignite talk at the Connectivity Summit. So I got my slides done, but I got to come up with some talking points. I don't know. How will I ever talk for 5 minutes, right?
About AI.
About AI. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to write it all down.
Right.
Then on Wednesday, I have as the vice chair of Jefferson Transit Authority at the Finance Committee meeting. I'm not sure what my school schedule is. I might not have to go to Tacoma, then in which case I will be able to go to the Transit Advisory Group meeting, or I might miss the first tag meeting if I am in Tacoma. On Thursday,
I know, that's always.
I have 4 things at one time, but I'm going to the EDC Board of Directors meeting. As I said earlier, we have 32 applicants right now that we're looking through for the ED position, which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Then I have told Marcia that I would go on to Zoom onto the Optic meeting, the Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission, just to give an update such as it is. Mostly, hey, come, the Olympic National Parks is going to be with us on Monday, so come, make your voice heard. AI think tank internally at 1:30, and then I will be doing the PLVC meeting at the Beach Club in Port Ludlow on the 6th. Curious to see what month, you remember that I was at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board with you, so both David Wayne Johnson and George Terry presented about the NPR agreement,
Okay.
November agreement last time, as well as Diane, who was just here about the pool survey.
Okay.
And then Friday, we have our Glen Cove monthly meeting, and I think I said, but I sent out the note, we're setting up some focus groups. And this is actually a project, an independent contract I'm doing at school too, to figure out an idea of a different way of approaching public outreach for big public projects. So
Wow.
one of the things is it's always a challenge, where do you get public input in the at the top of it, where it's like blue sky thinking,
Right.
and that's really, it can lead you in all sorts of places that aren't actually practical. You know, we see it in planning commission recommendations sometimes too, where it comes down, where it gets filtered down to where there's just a thumbs up, thumbs down. That's not a great place to
Yeah.
get public input, and you've seen what happens sometimes when you have last minute interjections into that. So this is an effort it's a case study on seeing how, if we have a very interested stakeholder group, in this case, the property owners that I've already had a couple of meeting with
Mhm.
about extending sewer infrastructure to Glen Cove.
Mhm.
So I've invited all of them out to have small, 6 to 10 person conversations that aren't public meetings, but present the 4 options that the consultants have come up with, make sure they fully understand those, like
Love
dig
this.
into it. And then just have like an hour-long conversation with these mavens, kind of so they can chew on it and talk amongst themselves. And we record all that, again, put it through qualitative analysis that we can do with AI now.
Mhm.
And then, based on that, we refine the options. So trying to put like public input of the real knowledgeable stakeholders kind of near the top as we consider the different options.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the idea.
That is so cool. It's so cool. Another model to fold into that and your thinking, the marine carbon dioxide reduction project that's
Yeah.
coming back to Clallam and Jefferson, we're gonna be participating in. That's basically a social science effort
Mhm.
by some researchers at American University. I think it's American University, yes. And so they're using basically a research, using
A social
science
scientist, yeah.
research project,
Mhm.
basically to test out this, and effectively it is a lot of what you're talking about, which is to use the public engagement process to engage the communities, at a strategic point in a planning process.
Right.
And so they'll be reporting out on basically the public
Interesting.
process part of that, in
This is
addition
the
to
one
the
that's in
actual
Port in the
results.
Bay in Port Angeles?
They're
Through NODC is tied to this?
NODC was tied to the
But it
presentation
was
that
very
they made
contentious.
last
It was
year.
very contentious,
Yes,
right.
yes, and so they're doing this again,
Okay.
another round of public comment or public process
Mhm.
this summer and the September and December of this
Interesting.
year, and continuing their research on the public,
Ah,
the
love it.
public
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Karen to get a little more information about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like I'd love to have a couple more, the case study is really
Yeah.
about building a framework for public sector engagement that is meaningful and appropriately timed, right?
Well, I'll forward you connect you with the researcher.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Directly from American University.
And then so on Friday, we're having our monthly Glen Cove meeting, and then we have our technical assistance meeting that I'll try to join with Alex Michael. And then at 12:30, I think I'm gonna do KPTZ live from the Connectivity Summit. I think I'm gonna do a little walk and talk around. So
Nice.
Danny's gonna walk around with me, and
See
maybe,
how
I think
that
it's
works.
during the youth summit, so there might not be much action going on in the
Right.
big room, but we'll
That's
see.
okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then on Saturday, I'm one of 6 Ignite Talk speakers at 1 o'clock, I think. I think so, yeah, and I think they're all county staff, right?
All of the speakers are county staff?
I think.
Oh, wow, that's
Let me just look.
could be great.
I
Sure.
will give you a preview. Um. no, I'm here, John, Emily Calkins, Melinda Bauer, Beth Mauer, Oh, no, there's one construction one.
That's cool.
Yeah, so here, the Compassion Project about our alternative code enforcement program. Housing for Workforce by Brent Butler. Reimagining the Future of Irondale, Emily Calkins.
Nice.
Me doing my AI one. Oh, Scott Freeman doing something on the timber cooperative. And then Dr. Bauer doing school-based health centers.
Very cool.
Yeah, so
Well,
come see him.
I have a couple other just quick thoughts, just because I'm seeing my email, just so you all know. I have, Sheriff Bernsteiner and I have been talking to each other about, just trying to be responsive to all of the public comment that came forward during the appointment process. And so I had inquired to him about the Citizen Advisory Committee and the comment that was, had come forward that Citizen Advisory Committee has dwindled a bit. And so I just reached out to folks on the CAC and also just had reached out to Sheriff Bernsteiner and said, how do you feel about this? And, is there, would you be supportive of really, getting some help in the community to rebuild that CAC and make it a little bit more robust and diverse? And he's replied and said he'd really like to do that. And
Nice.
he says, I'd love to have a more robust group of Jeffersonians. I'm not sure how if there's a agreed upon moniker there, but on our CAC. And
Camera on it.
yeah, that's a possibility, absolutely. So that's exciting to me that he's willing to have a conversation about that. So I think we'll probably find some time to meet about that this week and move that forward.
Good stuff.
And then I also have had a few requests. I mean, this is since we have a minute. What's next with LTAC? It feels like it's, still like bylaws need to be written, but
We have the TCC meeting. It's non-functional. It doesn't usually come.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't do anything until September usually.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
What's the process on getting it reseeded?
I've been working with the prosecutor's office, but it's kind of, we have to get TCC going first.
Okay.
And really what, I'd love to see is TCC to kind of seed LTAC. And so I've been reaching out to a couple new potential TCC members. Our next TCC member is meeting, is March 11th.
Okay, coming up. That's
And
great.
so, by the end of the month, we'll have kind of a plan, if not the bylaws for LTAC.
Cool. That's
So-
great. That's helpful. And I've gotten a few questions about that. So
Yeah, you can always have them ask me.
I absolutely, or ask here so
Yeah.
that you can say. something.
Yeah, I'm happy to, I mean, it's going slow because there's just lots of different things going on.
Yeah, there sure are.
One of the interesting things is that we are the only county on the Olympic Peninsula whose LTAC revenue has gone down the last 2 years. So,
Yeah, and that's really a remarkable thing, right? All of the,
and it's tied into the
Excellent.
short-term rentals too. And I mean, I want to get short-term rentals tied into the tourism conversation because it feels like those conversations happen
Mhm.
completely separately. And I think that's a missed opportunity.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's important as we think about how, as, short-term rentals as a pool, as a tool to limiting short-term rentals as a tool to support housing, but also recognizing the impact of that
Mhm.
and the potential for short-term rentals to bring tax dollars
Yeah.
that we desperately need,
Mhm.
right? It's
And I don't want to
such a-
make barriers with our regulations. Whenever regulations are barriers, I think people just look to skirt them. And I think,
Agreed.
I mean, that's what it's what I see when I was giving a first over to those proposals is.
And when we can't enforce them, that's the,
And I
there's
mean-
no point. So I think,
The technology that exists already, it makes a lot of sense to me to put it on the shoulders of the platforms. But,
yet another really complex issue. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
All I think that I can think of. Definitely expect an agenda request, I think, coming to add from the Climate Action Committee, their recommendations. I think they'll be bringing those forward to the BOCC fairly soon. I can see in my email.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we know why our meetings always go long.
There's a lot going on.
I was gonna say less efficient sharing, but that's it. Maybe it's a busy
It's efficient. You're about to adjourn us before 4:30.
Yes, absolutely. All right, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.
Okay.
Have a
Thank you
great
very
week.
much. Thanks for your leadership.
Yeah, we're.